All right. Alison has asked me to do an alternative method for blooming the gelatin. This is a method that I learned several years ago, and it seems to work out pretty well. To start off this method, I generally take water and I will put it on the sheet pan. Make sure you've got a relatively flat sheet pan when you do this, but you want water on the pan. You'll then take your sheets of gelatin, and since they need to be wet, I go ahead and kind of dip them in the water really well, and then I lay them on the sheet pan in the water. For this recipe you need a sheet and a half for each flavor, so I'm keeping them separate. And you can stack the gelatin sheets, that's generally not a problem. But by doing this, you are blooming the gelatin to the perfect stage where it's not overdone or underdone, because you can let gelatin go too far, but you want to make sure that it's nice and wet. Lay it down. That one's been dipped. Lay that down. And then the last thing you want to do is you want to kind of sprinkle a little bit more water on top of the gelatin. And then what I do is I put this gelatin into the refrigerator. It will stay in the refrigerator, it will bloom nicely, it will give you the ability to be able to pick it up and melt it when you need to without it over blooming.
Okay, so we're going to make the Bavarian for the triple chocolate Bavarois, and I'm only going to make a half a recipe because, quite frankly, I am being inundated with more product than I know what to do with. My neighbors can only eat so much. So this particular Bavarian is an anglaise based Bavarian, and so I have separated 4.5 ounces of egg yolks, and I'm just going to kind of break those up and get them blended. And then I have 3 ounces of sugar, and I'm going to add that. And you know, I always tell y'all to use a machine. Well, today I'm not going to, so. I'm going to bring this to the ribbon stage. And then we're going to start our cream and our milk, okay? Okay, so time for the anglaise. I have 6 ounces of heavy cream, and I have 6 ounces of milk, and I'm going to heat those together, and then right as it starts to heat up, I'm going to then temper that into my eggs. So okay, so the milk has been heating. I'm going to bring this up to about 180 degrees, hopefully without hurting myself. We're at 175 right now, 177. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply take this and I'm going to slowly add it to my eggs. And then once I get it added to the eggs, I'm just going to come back through and I'm going to pour it back into the pan. And then we're going to, while stirring constantly, bring it back up to about 175, just below 180 degrees. If it's any higher than 180 degrees, your eggs are going to overcook and they're going to separate on you. So. And we want to keep this stirring the entire time, because if we don't, we're going to have some issues. Now, this is not going to thicken up like a pastry cream, guys. It never will. It's a sauce. So what we're looking for is it to be able to coat the back of the spoon, or nappe the back of the spoon, which means I can draw a line in the middle of it and the line will stay. Right now I'm just at about 100 and depends on what part of the liquid I'm in. I'm almost there. So keep it moving. I'm going to turn my heat off. And there's my light. Okay?
On.
Okay, so now that our anglaise is done, I'm going to bring the gelatin over. And I'm going to squeeze out most of the excess water. And I'm going to put it in the hot anglaise where I can melt the gelatin. And then here in just a minute we're going to pour over some melted chocolate. Okay, so we're going to pour the anglaise into this container to find out exactly how much we have. And I have about 19 ounces. So we're going to go with 6 1/4 ounces of anglaise in each one of the chocolates. So I'm just going to simply put the chocolate on the scale. Zero it out, and I need 6.25 ounces. Make sure that your anglaise is still relatively warm, because if it's not, it'll set the chocolate as it's going into the bowl. 6.25. Okay. And I'm just going to mix that up. And that'll be the dark Bavarian. Ooh, I wish I could eat this one. And then I've got the white. Again, I'm going to zero it out. And I'm going to add 6.25 ounces of the anglaise in. That all nice and stirred in. Now I always like to put the dark and the milk separate with the white in between. That way I can see the contrast of color. Sometimes depending on what kind of milk chocolate you're using, it's about the same color as the dark chocolate, believe it or not. So okay, now that I have these mixed, I have 18 ounces of cream in my mixer, and I'm going to mix that up to just a little bit past soft peaks, and then I'm going to fold it into my anglaise. Okay, so earlier Bill made us a half sheet of the chocolate sponge, and don't forget to look at that video. And then what he did was he took a biscuit cutter and he cut rounds for us, and then he cut those rounds in half. The sheet of cake was approximately half an inch or an inch thick, And so he just cut it in half. And what was against the pan is going to be the top of your cake, just like always. And then I took some acetate strips. Quite frankly, I didn't have any acetate here at the house, so I took some page protectors, and I took ½ inch on either side, or measured it out to 4 inches. I took a ½ inch on either side, and then I put an inch mark, so I have 3 marks. Be careful, guys. Do not put the chocolate or the Bavarian against the marks. And then I just simply took the chocolate cake and I put it into the bottom of each one of the charlotte molds. Guys, this is a 2½ inch in diameter pipe, just in case you're curious. Now my cream is all whipped up, and again, it's a soft whip, so it's, you know, got a little bit of body into it, but it is not you know, as hard as we usually will whip cream. So I'm going to kind of set this off to the side, and I'm going to grab my scale real quick. I know, I only have so much counter space. And then I'm going to okay, so I have my bowls, and they're all about the same size, so I'm going to put the same amount of cream into each one of them. Theoretically, if I whipped up 18 ounces of cream, I still should have 18 ounces of cream. So I'm going to put 6 ounces in each bowl. Live TV. Okay, and then I'm going to start with the milk chocolate. And I'm just going to simply go on and pour this in. I didn't say that you weren't going to get every bowl in your kitchen dirty, but it is a nice dessert. And then I'm just simply going to fold this in. And I'm going to do the same with all the other Bavarians. And last but not least, the white. Got the cream. Oh. Now, if I was doing this in a large batch, I wouldn't do it all at one time. because you're going to have a point in time that you're filling your Bavarians up into your molds, and then they have to go into the refrigerator. But for a very small batch, I'm going to live on the edge. So I'm going to start with the milk chocolate. And I'm going to do one more final tap of making sure that these are all the way down to the bottom. Okay, I have my disposable pastry bag and I'm just going to fill it. And quite frankly, I think we're going to make more than 8, but that's as far as I'm going. And I'm just going to simply cut the end off, and I'm going to start filling this to that first line. And when I start getting close to it, I'm going to grab the end of my bag and I'm going to cap it off, and I'm going to move it to the next one. Would have helped if I'd lined all my little lines up where I could see them. Okay. Okay, so I wrapped this on the table a couple of times to kind of even out the chocolate Bavarian, and then I stuck it in the freezer for about 5-10 minutes. Just to get a little bit of a set on it, and now it's time to pipe in the white. So same procedure, I'm going to put all the white chocolate Bavarian into the piping bag, and then I'm going to pipe to the line in my little cups. And then once that's done, we will do the dark. When I put my bag in, because I'm using the same bag, because quite frankly I don't have that many disposable bags here at the house. I have one. So we had to clean this one. So what I did was I took a bull clip to kind of clip it off at the bottom. That way, or a binder clip, that way I'm not going to end up with it all over the place. So I'll just unclip this, grab hold of the end in my hand, and then start piping. When I get all these filled up, I'm going to wrap it again to level it out. And then once again, I'm going to put it in my freezer for about 5 minutes just to kind of firm up that gelatin a little bit. That way I can get the next layer in a nice even line.
On.
Okay, now it's time for the dark chocolate. It's getting pretty thick because the gelatin's beginning to set up. But we'll be able to get what we need to do done. Again, if you're doing more than 8 or you feel extremely slow, don't put all of the anglaise and cream together. because you can always reheat your anglaise just a little bit to remelt your gelatin if the cream's not in there. You can do it with the cream in there too, but you'll deflate your cream and you'll have a much flatter product. Now remember, when I put this book clip on, I fold it a couple of times, that way I can get my finger on it. Before it starts running out on my table. Trying to be neat about it. And to get this last little bit out, I'm going to take a bowl scraper. That's clear across the kitchen. And I'm going to just kind of flatten my bag out, and I'm going to push all this cream down to the bottom. Don't push it all the way to the bottom, because then it'll end up on your table. Go with your handmade cleaner. Thank you. But I'm going to push it most of the way down. And I'm going to finish this one off. And we're going to be a little shy on this one. It's okay. It'll be the one that I make Bill eat later. And then we'll come back here in a few minutes and cap these off. I'll wrap them on the table one more time. I will cap them off with the cake, and then I'm going to put a little bit of ganache on top because, you know, there's just not enough chocolate in this thing. Okay, so we're going to cap off the chocolate Bavarois with a little bit of ganache. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. If you're going to do it for long term, you might want to leave, or you don't want to might, you definitely want to leave them in their containers. You can always take them out and leave them in their acetate. But, you know, a lot of times we only have so much room, so sometimes we do our desserts to order. So we're going to just cap these off. A little bit of ganache right on top. Put my glasses on for I can see. And then we'll throw this back into the freezer and let the ganache set. And that's going to make a nice little dessert. Actually, not little dessert. It's a pretty good sized dessert. Even though it does kind of look a little small. It's very rich, guys. So another way you can do it is, as you are serving these, just go on and pull the acetate off. I meant to put on a second glove. So I'm going to just go on and pull the acetate off. And I'm just going to go on and throw that away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ganache and I'm going to put it on top, and I'm going to let it kind of drizzle down the side just a little bit here and there. Just to give it a little bit of decoration down the side. Kind of make it a little bit more eye appealing for your customer. Go on and finish off the top. And then what I do with this is maybe give it just a little bit of fruit and a piece of mint on top, just to make it a little bit more attractive as it sits on the plate for your guests. Okay?